everybody, welcome. My name's Garrett. I'm the founder of Ambition Emotion. I'm so happy, I'm so excited, I'm so grateful to have you here for our second workshop. I am pumped for you to experience our guest speaker later on this evening. But before we get started, I want to touch up on a couple of quick points. So you are starting your mentor relationship. That is awesome. Hopefully you've had your first conversation. I'd love to learn about it. Post maybe about some of the key talking points that you've had for your first meeting in the comment section. Would love to learn about how that first meeting has gone. But yeah, this workshop's all about how to network in a genuine way and really make the most out of it. This workshop should be about an hour long. And if you've got any questions during this workshop, please post them in the comments section. As a reminder, I'm going to ask you 3 questions during the duration of this workshop. Once we have asked those questions, I'll expect you to answer them. That's how you get credit for participating and being here at the workshops. I'm really excited for you to experience our guest speaker tonight. I'm really excited to dive into this. Now, this is what's really key. I mean, genuine networking is such a pivotal component to building rapport, to getting job offers, to getting promotions. Really, if you can hone this skill, if you can hone this ability, you will be set professionally, because ultimately, at the end of the day, your hard skills, that being your ability to crunch numbers, to do some form of engineering, to do some form of science, like all those things are pretty good. They're very easy to measure. So it's very clear whether or not you are better or worse than somebody on a hard skill. But your soft skills are much more difficult to measure. But those soft skills are really what's going to set you apart. I mean, as they say, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And this is the workshop about how you can know more people and have a stronger bond with them, because then it goes to your reputation. Because if you have a reputation for treating people like garbage, you're not going to have a great reputation. People are going to want to help connect you with other people. If you come in with low energy, if you come in with a bad state, if you come in talking trash about other people, you're not going to put yourself in a good position. And so I want to be very clear. When it comes to networking, when it comes to building a relationship, it is not all about the transaction. If you're coming into a networking situation, you're thinking to yourself, what is in it for me? You are not going to have a positive outcome. I promise you on that. I really want to be clear. It's not all about landing the job or the internship. Sometimes it's about building the relationship and then playing the long game, because ultimately that may turn into an opportunity because they built a rapport with you. But if you burn them, or if you make them feel like you are using them to get to a location that you would like to be, they can smell that on you. They can smell it from a mile away. And that is not great. As they say, desperation reeks. You do not want to be desperate. You don't want to be perceived as someone that's a user or a taker. You want to be a giver. You want to be someone who gives energy to relationships. The first place to start is being genuine with how you talk to people and how you build rapport with people. Now, this is something we talked about last time, but it is so important, and that is the 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. As we've said before, your state is most important. So physically, how are you? Physically, what is going on with your world? Physically, I don't care what is happening. If you recently broke up with your significant other, if your dog just died, if you got some bad news, I don't care what's going on. If you get up, if you shake it out, if you let it loose, you will get yourself into a positive state. So I want to challenge you to do that right now. I want you to get up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah, just let it out, let it loose, let it go. Because what you're doing is you're releasing blood to your brain. You're releasing endorphins. You're getting yourself into a state conducive for retaining information. If you're just sitting there on a couch or in a chair in a slumped over position, your likelihood of retaining any of the information we talk about tonight is severely diminished. But if you come in standing up, moving around, getting your blood flowing, you are much more likely to retain this information. Have you ever found it difficult in a classroom setting to remember what your professor says if you've been sitting for 3 hours? That's why 3-hour lectures really struggle to work. They're not very effective because people are not moving around. Your brain needs blood to retain information. So get up, get moving, get out, get loose. Now, the second key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself for why you will or will not be successful? I promise you right now, you will achieve up to the goals that you set for yourself in life and no higher. So you might as well shoot for the stars and land on the moon than shoot for the moon and end up in nowhere. Because if you are not focused about where you want to be, or really having a big, hairy, crazy, audacious goal for yourself, what are you doing? Like, are you just saying to yourself, like, I'm cool with winding up short, with, settling down and just settling for everything in my life? If that's the case, this program's not for you. I can tell you that right now. This program is not for you if you're trying to settle. But if you're someone that wants to go for it, if you want to go big, if you want to go out there for the opportunities that you want to see in your life, this program is absolutely for you. Let this program be a springboard. Let your mentor be a Sherpa that's guiding you up this mountain of life and success and help you get to where you want to be. This is someone who wants to guide you, that wants to help you. They wouldn't have signed up for this program if they weren't interested in seeing you succeed. So I want to be very clear with you. What is the story for why you will be successful? Understand that, hone it, be prepared. In fact, I would challenge you to write this down. Write it on a piece of paper. It's more likely to stick in your mind if you write it on a piece of paper of where you want to be. Stick it up on your wall. Stick it up on your desk. Stick it up on your dresser. Stick it up on your mirror. Something that's going to remind you of where you want to be in 1 month, 3 months, 1 year from now. That will help you set the target of where you want to go. Because if you don't set these goals, you're going to be on a path that's got really no clear outcome of where you want to go. So the last part is your strategy. What are you going to do to set yourself apart? Now, when it comes to strategies, I'm a big believer in routines. When I say routines, I mean literally getting into a daily habit that you can practice regularly so then you can be better at a skill. We think about habits sometimes in a negative light because we think about people just being addicted to bad actions, but I believe that habits can also be attributed in a positive light as well. What is a positive habit you can get into to help you build more genuine relationships? I believe one thing you can do is to be intentional about having an informational interview every single week with a new person, with a new professional in your field. You can leverage LinkedIn. You could go to a professor's office hours. You could talk to a friend of yours whose parent works in the field that you're interested in working towards, or a family friend that you know works in the field that you're interested in working towards. If you set up one informational interview every single week, and by an informational interview, I want to be very clear. This is a conversation. This isn't an interview. You're not trying to get a job from this person. You're just trying to get knowledge about what this work is like. Set up one of those a week. I can promise you they're going to start making introductions for you. They're going to start helping you get to where you want to be. By the way, if your goals change over time, that's okay. That's totally okay. You can share with them how your goals have changed, and they're going to want to keep helping you over time. I'll give you a perfect example of this. As an entrepreneur, I set goals all the time. I have a board of mentors. I literally have about 50 to 100 mentors that I send once every 3 months an update of what's going on with the business. Here's the thing though, I've pivoted this business many, many times. Now, initially when I first got started, I was thinking to myself like, oh, well, they're my mentors. Like, if I tell them that I've pivoted, will they think I'm a total failure? Will they not want to help me anymore? What I found is that is absolutely not the case. They're always there to support me. Mentors that have been with me for 5+ years still give me guidance, still help make introductions, still help me out and support me as my mission has grown, as my goals have grown. That is the nature of mentoring relationships. That is the nature of relationships in general. You should keep your network up to date with what is going on in your world because they will want to see you succeed. But the key is that you ask them for something specific. When I meet with my mentors or when I send them an email, I ask for something very, very specific. I don't say, hey, if you know anybody in XYZ space, if you could introduce me, would love that. Why? Because it's not at the top of their mind. What I'll do is I'll physically go onto their LinkedIn profile, look at who they're connected with and say, hey, I noticed that you're connected with Jane Doe, John Doe, Shelby Doe, and Jenny Doe. I know that you may not be connected with all 4 of those people, but if you are connected with one of them, would you mind introducing me? Here's an email template that you could copy and paste to introduce me. Now I've made it extremely specific and easy for them to take an action step to help me out. And that is how you can continue to grow your relationships, your network, and build rapport with people. And just keep them in the loop of what's going on in your world. So I just want to be very clear. It's about building genuine relationships, and it's about when you're building those genuine relationships and then you're asking them for introductions or connecting with more people through those relationships, being very specific and making it as easy as possible for them to help you out. I really want to stress this. It's so important. Genuine networking. If you can take anything from this whole program, if it's genuine networking, and by genuine networking, I mean really listening, taking an active and keen interest in who you are speaking with, you are going to be set. You're going to be in a great position. Because at the end of the day, it's not your elevator pitch. It's not going to be anything about you that makes someone interested in you. It's going to be about your ability to listen to them. In fact, I can tell you multiple times where I didn't say a word in a conversation. I just nodded my head yes and asked questions about things that somebody else has said. And at the end of the conversation, whether that be 30 minutes or 60 minutes long, they said, man, Garrett, you are such a great conversationalist. Or, gosh, I feel like I just had such a great conversation with you. And the funniest thing about it is I didn't actually say a word. the point is this: people love to talk about themselves. Why? Because people are really interested in things that they're interested in. People wouldn't choose to spend the time that they have on this earth in the way that they did unless they thought it was the most optimum way of spending their time. Therefore, things that interest them, things that they choose to spend their time on, are things that interest them and ultimately make you interesting to them because you've taken an interest in those actions and activities. I hope that makes sense. If you want to rewatch that, take that back 30 seconds because I think it's really important. People, ultimately, at the end of the day, people care about themselves. People care about things that they are interested in because they've chosen to spend the time that they have on those tasks. So with that said, I'm excited to jump in to our guest speaker this evening. Really, the whole point of this workshop is about genuine networking. If you've got any questions for myself or for our guest speaker, please post them in the comments section. By the way, if you have not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do. I'll add you to our LinkedIn group where we discuss different topics, and you can add different topics, ask any questions, and expand us to our entire Ambition in Motion network. Connect with me. I'll add you to the group. But yeah, I'm so excited to get started. Let's jump into our guest speaker this evening. I'm so excited for our workshop this evening. We're here to talk about how to network in a genuine way. Really, how can we go about putting ourselves out there, connecting with the right people, but doing it in a non-transactional way? I think right now as students, it can be difficult. This might be the first time we've ever networked before. We're trying to figure all that out. We've got an incredible guest for you all today. We've got Dr. Tasha Dickerson. So Dr. Tasha Dickerson is a business owner and CEO, professor, and supply chain guru. Dr. Dickerson has built her skills and network both commercially and academically and does an incredible job coaching, training, and mentoring companies and their people. Dr. Dickerson, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Tasha, we're here to talk about how to network in a genuine way. And I think maybe to get started, I would love if you could just share with us, how did you land your first job and how has that first job helped kind of pave the way to where you're at today?
Oh my God, my first job was actually through an intern. So I had an intern in college, which led to my first job. And I think that had to do with a lot of social skills. And I received that in school, learning how to actually articulate what I was looking for and just being genuine, meeting people. So I think that has helped me throughout my entire career. Just knowing that if I'm genuine and being open and honest, and I go into any situation with the mindset of giving rather than receiving. Like, I know what I bring to the table. If you just give me an opportunity, I can do this, 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 and this. And so that way, when I open and have a mindset of that, it seems like it eases everyone else who talks to me. They feel like, okay, well, I see what you can bring to the table. Let me see what I can do for you.
That's really fascinating. I love your perspective and focus on giving because ultimately that is truly giver's gain. Yes. I think that's a term used in BNI, but I think it's very much relevant. I mean, by the way, BNI, for anybody who doesn't know, it stands for Business Networking International. So it's a business networking group. And I think it's 100% accurate. And I think you are very much onto the point there because if you can help facilitate connections or help people get to where they want to be, they're going to remember you. They are going to want to help you out. And it's not a tit for tat type of thing. You may not get all of what you gave out there, but at the end of the day, your reputation is what's going to be what they remember. So I think that's so critical.
That's so true.
So Tasha, that first internship, that was your first foot in the door. And you mentioned that this was, you told people what you wanted to accomplish, which I think is very cool. What was that first internship? What did you want to accomplish?
My first internship was at the Department of Health and Hospitals. And so I was in a department where I was already able to help others in that scene. It was in public administration. That was my major. And I was there to assist with whatever department I was working in. So as an intern, you may not have a specific department that you're assigned to. So they use you in every department in which they need help. And so that's what I was known for. They will pull me from every direction. Okay, get Tasha, she can help us with that. She's real good at this. Get Tasha, she can do the mailroom. She know how to sort and do this real quickly. So I learned those skills during my intern. So I was able to multitask. I learned that very, very quickly. And so I know when I was in that particular setting that I wanted to accomplish being the go-to person. I had already established that. If I can master just knowing what to do in this particular field, I know how to multitask. I wanted to be the go-to person. And so that set me up for everything that I did after an intern and learning my obtaining my first job and going throughout corporate America. I was able to pretty much be the go-to person in every position that I had. So I'm laughing because the last position that I left, I remember my director saying, Tasha, I didn't know you did all of that. Like, what are we going to do? We've interviewed 7 different people and we don't know if we can get someone to fill your shoes because you were that go-to person. And I said at that point, you know what, God, I actually accomplished what I said I was going to set out to do years ago. So that sticks. It really does.
That's so powerful. There's so many key nuggets that you just laid in there that I love in that story. One, you set an intention. You want to be the go-to person. Makes me think of a question I'd love to ask all the students in the audience right now. Post this in the comments section. What is your intention when it comes to your work, when it comes to your networking, when it comes to your job or internship, or even higher ed, whether it be a master's degree or a PhD, whatever you're pursuing? What is your intention? What is the outcome that you'd like to achieve? Post it in the comments section. What do you want to be known for? What do you want your reputation to be? I think those are another way of putting it. Post in the comments section. I'd love to learn about that. I think that is such a powerful thing because ultimately, I see this so often. What will happen is a student will go into a networking situation or an opportunity and they almost like become a chameleon. They want to be everything to everybody. And you can't really be everything to everybody. And so if you take a stand for nothing, what do you actually stand for? It makes me, I just finished watching the play Hamilton, makes me think of Aaron Burr. So if you're thinking to yourself, like, if you stand for nothing, what do you actually stand for? And I think that's something that's so relevant in this scenario. And I think if you are a person that wants to set an intention of like, hey, I'm a go-getter. I'm going to be the person who is going to do whatever it takes to accomplish the things, which means if you are going to set that intention, you can't have like off days. Like you have to be open to being on all the time. You have to be the person that people can rely on, which does mean sacrifice. Could you tell us a little bit about maybe that sacrifice or any sacrifices that you had to make to keep up that reputation of being the go-getter?
Oh, definitely. When you're set and you know exactly what you want, you are going to make sacrifices. So whether that means I'm focused on doing my job at this time, I can't go out and party with my friends right now. You know, I'm actually preparing for a presentation tomorrow for this intern. I have sacrificed a lot in my career to get to the point that I needed to be. But another thing I would tell students, don't feel guilty if you can't commit to everything, because it's only so much that we can do. If you've already had intentions and you know what it is that you want to do and you're setting your path for that particular goal, then don't feel bad if you can't commit to all these other things that people are asking you to do. And so I had to learn to do that. You know, I didn't feel bad if I couldn't do a report for someone else because they asked me to do it. If I know, well, that's not going to, it's not going to enhance what I'm currently doing in this position. So some things you have to determine what is going to help you get to the next level. And if that is not going to help you, then it's okay to say no. And that's what I had to learn. Yeah,
that's powerful. When is the right time to say no? And that's, I think, a very fascinating thing, because that gets back onto the whole point of like, what is my intention? Then maybe almost like reassessing, like if there are opportunities or decisions that I might be proposed to make, are they within that intention? I mean, the intention can change. You can change your intention, and that's a bigger conversation with yourself and your mentors and the people you're close with. But if you're going to keep your intention, you must reassess and do an audit of the opportunities and the time that you've got. Is this consistent with it? And if not, maybe you don't take that action. Saying no is appropriate.
That's correct. I wholeheartedly believe that. I tell my clients that it's okay when you are actually networking and you want to propel to the next level. You have to be genuine. You have to go in with the thought of, I want to build a relationship. This is why I'm here. and you have to think long term. This is not something that I want to do right now or for the next 20 or 30 days to get my foot in the door. If this is something that's meaningful to me, I want this to be long term, because when I leave this particular position, I may need to contact you again to help me to go to another level. So you always want to think long term and how you can help someone, or how you can partner and build that relationship for a meaningful relationship.
Let's talk about networking. How has your network influenced how you got to where you're at today?
Oh my gosh. I think I like to listen. A lot of people say I like to talk, but I'm the person that likes to listen. If I go to a networking event and I find myself in a room full of other people that I don't know, I introduce myself and I say, so tell me a little bit about you and your company. And I'm that person that want to listen. I go around the room and I take notes, because I want to know what you do, what is your company. And while they're telling me and I'm actively listening, I'm thinking how I can help that company. When I take an assessment of everyone that I've spoken to and I've listened to what they need, what they desire, I go home and then I take an assessment of how can I be a help to this person in their company. And so that's how my networking skills has helped me propel to the next level, because I can always call and reach back to my networking and say, hey, you remember that time? Oh yeah, Dr. Dickerson, I can help you with that. I know someone who can if I can. And so you build upon relationships like that, and they know you for your networking skills, or because you did this and you helped them one time before. People don't forget that. They don't forget an act of kindness. And so that's what has helped me in building relationships.
Let's take a moment to rewind there, because I think you dropped a couple really key nuggets of wisdom in that story there. One, the intention on listening. I've shared this story with the students in this program during our first workshop about how I landed my first internship sitting next to a guy on an airplane. Mm-hmm. Essentially, I spent very little of that conversation talking. It's funny. I like to follow this like 80-20 rule, where I spend 20% of the time talking and 80% of the time listening. And what's hilarious about it is so often people at the end of the conversation will say like, wow, you're such a great conversationalist. And I might be thinking to myself, like, I didn't say actually 2 words, but people love hearing themselves talk.
Yes.
And if you're willing to listen, it's going to build a much stronger bond with them. Because I hear this all the time. Students say, well, what about my elevator pitch? How will they know about me? Anything about me if I don't tell them about me? And it's like, they don't care. Most people care about themselves and what's on their mind and what they want to get off their chest. And if you're willing to listen to them, you are going to show them a whole lot more about who you are just because of your willingness to listen, because most people aren't.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. And I learned that. And as I've picked up that skill as being an active listener, that works. That works. Even with my clients, coaching clients, people think, well, you're the coach, you're supposed to tell me what to do. No, I'm here to listen. And when I listen to you, we work it together. And before you know it, we finish a session and they already know what the answer is. And I didn't have to open my mouth. I just agree with them. And they're like, well, how did you do that? And I'm thinking, I didn't do anything, but it's just actively listening, and you let that person tell you what it is that they choose to do or they have intentions on doing. And you do it in a subtle way that you guide them. And that's what I do.
That's
and it
awesome.
Works every time.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about this transition from the working world that you were in to running and starting your own business. I think that's a fascinating story. And I know not every student's going to be an entrepreneur, but I think when we're in this world where there's so much uncertainty, I think the skills of being entrepreneurial are so powerful, because I've seen people get laid off of really big, stable companies that they pursued because it was a safe pick. And it wasn't a safe pick. They ended up getting furloughed and laid off. And so ultimately they had to be entrepreneurial to get themselves to either a new role or start their own company. Mm-hmm. What made you want to start your own company, and how did genuine networking help you get that off the ground?
What made me start my own company was that it wasn't that I was tired of the economy or I felt like the economy was just going to shift. I felt like because I've given so much to the companies that I was working for, I felt like I could put that same effort into my own business. And so what led me into doing entrepreneurship, I had the support of my family and I had some very good connections. And so when I ventured out on my own and opened up my consulting and coaching business, I was able to reach out to my network. And it was word of mouth pretty much. That's what actually helped me. All of those networking and building relationships in the past, it actually helped me because word of mouth was my deciding factor. Those were my clients that I received. Well, hey, Dr. Dickerson, I was referred to you by such and such. They told me you work really well with this person and I want you to help me build my business or give me some strategies on how I can move forward in my business. And that's what actually helped me. So I tell everyone now, especially if you're in school, use that time wisely. Build your portfolio while you're in school. You never know who you may need and who you can refer back to once you finish school. You can reach back to them, and that can be a part of your portfolio for you to move forward. And that's what I did. Every connection that I made while I was working, whether it was at a conference that I attended, whether it was a class that I taught, I made connections each space that I had the opportunity. And I was able to reach back to those people when I decided to start my own business.
That's really cool. And I think, by the way, this is interesting for students. This does not necessarily mean, even if you're thinking to yourself like, okay, I'm not necessarily entrepreneurial, I'm not going to start a business, but there's a lot of parallels to all of this. I mean, one, you build these relationships, but more importantly, you harvested them. So I think what happens so often is we build relationships and then we think to ourselves like, oh crud, I haven't reached back out to them in 5 years. The relationship is gone, and it's relationships and networking is about reaping and sowing. And ultimately, if you're harvesting these relationships, you're sowing these relationships, you'll be able to reap them when you need them. But if you do not tend to them, and I'm staying with this whole farming metaphor, but if you don't tend to the relationships that you've built, they're going to die. And eventually, you're not going to be able to leverage them. And so one thing that I love to do, and I love to leverage, is just periodically, once every few months, sending a just update email on my life. And it doesn't actually need to be an ask of any sort. It just can say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. These are the things that I'm working on. And just want to let you know. Mm-hmm. And it's a great way to keep your network up to date, because maybe you'll get to a point, or maybe you'll get to a point where you'll need something from somebody, or they might say, you may not know this about me, but I actually have XYZ expertise in this area. If you'd like some insight, I'd love to help you.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. I agree with that because I still receive emails. I have emails that I get all the time. Hey, Dr. Dickerson, remember me? We met at such and such. Is it okay if you write me a letter of recommendation? And it may be someone I haven't talked to in 3 or 4 years, but we're in some type of connection, whether it's a group that we're in together, whether it's an association or an organization. I may not know exactly what you're doing, but we keep in contact in some form. And so you have to nourish that relationship in order to continue for it to grow, because you never know when you may need to reach out to someone. And that's what I continuously do.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I'd love to ask, Tasha, what is your why? By that, I mean, what is your reason for being? Why do you do what you do?
I feel like my purpose in what I do is to actually empower others to reach their highest potential. And so that's why I do a lot of things pro bono. I don't ask for money because I do it from my heart. And I realize when I do that, I reap benefits like I can't even imagine. You know, it's not that I expect it to come, but because I'm so passionate about what I do and helping others, I receive something that I wasn't even expecting. So my why is because I want to genuinely see people win. And I just feel like the world that we live in is so much out there, all of us could win together. And so that's actually my why. You know, I can do this in my sleep. It makes me excited for someone to call me and say, Dr. Dickerson, I got that first contract, or Dr. Dickerson, guess what? I got my first speaking engagement. I'm screaming on the phone with them, you know, so it's exciting. It's very exciting.
And I think that's really true of a lot of people. I guess in your experience, have you found that people genuinely are helpful?
Yes, I have. I can probably count on my hand how many people that I feel like you meet those who are in it for their own selfish reasons. You can spot that. But for the most part, the people that I have been in contact with, they are very helpful. I have not recently or in the last few years actually met anyone that I felt that I could not reach back to and actually gain some help or a reference from. So I really feel like people now are very genuine and they really want to help others succeed.
I think that's a really powerful point, because I think for a lot of students, they might think to themselves like, well, if I reach out to this person, like, what do I have to offer them? I'm just a student. I've got no experience. I've got no area of expertise. And my experience, I found that people love to connect with college students and just people in general, because it inspires them. It makes them feel like they're making an impact. People get a lot of just gratitude from that. And people want to see others succeed, and they want to help others succeed. And I think in our mind, we give ourselves some head trash that tells us like why we shouldn't do it, or like we get so transactional of like, well, how could they use me? I don't understand it. In reality, they're not using you for anything. They just, well, really, if they're using you for anything, it's to get maybe that feeling of youth back that you've got that they don't have, and they want to feel like they're helping somebody. That's something you can give them, and that's so powerful.
And when you look at it that way, I tell my students, don't always think that you need something to give to them, because as a professor, I love working with my students because I learn so much from them as well. You know, it's so much that I learn and they teach me as far as technology, what's the latest, this, that. I am like, okay, get one of my students to help me with that because I don't know how to do that. And so I always encourage them to always be mindful of the words that you say, because it's not that you don't have anything. Everybody has something to give, you know, regardless of what it may be. You just don't know how that person can utilize it. And so you can't think for that person. Just allow them to, you know, make you accessible, and they're going to show you how your expertise can actually be used in their company. So just be open-minded about it. That's what I always suggest to all my students.
Were you always great at networking, or was this something that you had to build over time?
I think it was something I built over time, because I used to be shy. You know, I always knew I wanted to talk to others, but I was shy. I didn't know how to approach it. And then when I realized, okay, either you're going to get out of this because nothing is going to be given to you and you got to actually put forth effort, you got to start making some transitions. And that's what I did. I started talking, saying more affirmations to myself and building my self-esteem up, self-confidence. And I would talk to myself every day. You can do this. You're going to go over there. You're going to say this. And even if it took me to rehearse it in the mirror of what I was going to say prior to actually meeting someone in a networking event, that's what I would do. But I just built the confidence up over time. And a lot of students and a lot of people need that. I mean, as an adult, we may go in the room and say, okay, before we go on and we putting on an event in front of 1,000 people, okay, this is what we're going to do. You still have to plan for it. So that never goes away.
I think that's a really great insight, because I think a lot of students might think to themselves like, well, I get really nervous, or I'm an introvert and I'm not really good at networking, so I'm just going to chalk it up that I'm just bad at networking. Like, bad is a state of like never thinking you can improve, but saying currently I'm not good shows that there's an opportunity for you to become good. And I think that's so critical in terms of your mindset. So it makes me think of a question, because I think as students, we all have this fear of like, we all have fears about what could happen when it comes to networking, but when we address those fears, typically that's how we can overcome them. So I would love to ask the students right now, post in the comment section, what is your greatest fear when it comes to networking? What is the greatest fear that you've got? Put it out there. I know this might be difficult. I know this might be uncomfortable, but what we find is that when you can learn about others' fears and you be like, that's crazy, that's ridiculous, you shouldn't let that hold you back, to then them seeing your fear and you being like, you know what? I realize that's probably also crazy too. It shouldn't be holding me back as well. I think when we can address our fears, we can start to really make some serious progress in our networking ability.
That is so true. Because fear it cripples everyone, you know, and even as a seasoned veteran at it, you know, I still have to talk myself down. Okay. Your anxiety is on 100 and I have to calm myself down and know like, okay, well, you've done this, you got this, it's okay. And so you're still learning every day. I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, well, you're at the top of your game, you're never going to learn. And that's not true. I am a lifetime learner. I'm always looking for ways how I can improve, how can I enhance what I already know, and I love meeting people in order to do that. So that's why I love networking so much too.
So what are some go-to questions that you love to ask that have more engaging and just personalized conversations?
I like to ask open-ended questions. So if I know I'm going to a particular network, whatever it may be in supply chain, I like to ask, I'm trying to see, I like to get people's opinion on what's the latest products or what's the latest services in supply chain that they feel is helping their company. And I like to hear what their reasoning is behind that. And so why I do open-ended questions is because it just starts a dialogue and it gets people to talking, and then you see where their mind is and what they are looking for in their business and what they're expecting other people to do. And this has always been good for me, no matter what type of event, whether it's an empowerment event, whether it's a college student, high school type event, always asking that person a personal question and it be open-ended. It allows them to talk more about themselves and why they're at this particular event. And so I can always jump in and just add to that dialogue.
Do you ever ask the question, what is your greatest challenge?
I've never asked that question. I've never asked what's their greatest challenge. I may ask them, so what do you think we can do differently, or how do you think we can improve on something, whatever that case may be or whatever the topic may be. But I never asked them personally what are their greatest challenges.
I just like to ask that question because I feel like it can help me get down to the heart of something that they might be going through. And this could be a personal thing. This could be a professional thing, especially if I'm meeting somebody that's maybe in a new field or a new area as me. I love to kind of ask, what is your, one question I like to ask is, can you tell me your story starting with kindergarten? Which is it's a fun question to ask because so often we think like, could you tell me a little bit about yourself? And then we just start saying our professional career, this is what we do, this is where I work, maybe like peripheral things. But I think when you ask the question, can you tell me your story starting with kindergarten? It gets them thinking about how their childhood impacted who and where they got to where they're at today. And I think that's a really fascinating story to follow.
That is. I like to ask, so how did you choose this field? Because some people like to tell me, well, I didn't choose this field chose me. And then it's a whole story behind how did they get in this particular field. So when I have time, I like to listen to that because that particular story is going to be, it's going to be lengthy. So I found that actually has a lot of open dialogue when you ask them, how did they choose that particular career profession that they're in? Because 9 times out of 10, they did not choose it. They were accidentally ran into that career profession, or someone told them they were good at that. I find that in a lot of my coaching sessions where someone told me I was really good at doing this. And I may ask the question, well, what do you think? Well, I may not be that great at it. So it brings out a whole lot of, a lot of other things that we didn't even think we were going to go through. But as you continue to dig deeper and ask all of these questions, I find more and more things that people didn't even understand that they were good at. And so that's always an eye-opener for both of us when we're doing that.
Does body language matter for when you're having conversations with people, even if you're virtual?
Yes. Body language is also communication, and whether you're slumped over, where you're texting, it tells so much about you, And even virtual, now that we're in COVID-19 and we're in these unprecedented times, we don't know the next time we're going to see each other face to face, showing up as if you would in the present, you should also do that virtually, Even when we're working online, I get dressed as if I'm going into the office because it helps with my mental state. If I stay in pajamas all day, that's where my mindset is going to be. And so I have to make sure that I'm in the right mindset, even when I'm virtually.
That makes a lot of sense. That's really fascinating. And that's so true. I think body language is so powerful. I know we do a little, stretch out, shake it out exercise before all of our workshops, and it just kind of gets our blood flowing, our dopamine running, our just brains ready to receive information. And I think that's so powerful. I guess this makes me think of another question I'd love to ask the students. What is a routine that you'd like to get into that just helps you prepare your body for networking opportunities, whether it be virtual or in person? What do you like to do? Is it power poses? Is it shaking it out? Is it screaming at the top of your lungs? Is it fake smiling really hard or fake laughing really hard to get you're tricking your brain into almost feeling happy? What do you do? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that. So Tasha, I think the last question, final two questions I have are, the first one's about navigating introduction. So we're all in this mentoring relationship right now, and we're still building our network. How can we ask for introductions, or do you suggest people ask for introductions so that they can build their network and continue growing what they know and who they know?
I would suggest asking. There's nothing wrong with that. I've been into positions where I was asked for an introduction and vice versa. So I don't see anything wrong with that. I always tell students, be ready. If you have an elevator pitch, shoot your shot. Like, that's the perfect time to tell them exactly what it is that you do, how you can help them, and what your expectations are. And so even now, as I go into different meetings or meet different people, I have an elevator pitch. I tell them right then and within those 20 seconds who I am, what I can provide, and how I can help you. And so that's how we do our connection. The introduction is so critical because we want to say that we don't judge, but we actually do when we first meet someone. And so this is your moment to shine. Introduce yourself, be authentic when you introduce who you are. Don't try to go in there and be someone that you're not, or, add all of these things to your accolades that you don't have. Be authentic, and, everything else is going to fall in place.
I like that. I think there's a couple of things that I would just maybe tweak on that. And this is just my own personal prerogative. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the elevator pitch, when it just comes to the very first conversation, I think more important than anything is keep it brief. People mm-hmm. have low patience. People, mm-hmm. like, if you go on for, honestly, it should be 15 seconds, a sharp 15 seconds, an actual 15 seconds. Like, not like, oh, it was like 15 seconds, but really was like 2 minutes. People don't have the patience for that. 2 minutes is a long time. 15 seconds, and it should be brief. It should be an overview. It should not go into any specifics, but it says, hey, my name is XYZ. I'm a student studying this, and I'm interested in pursuing a career down this path and learning more information about this area. Boom, that can be it. And that just shows them what you're about, and then asking them for their story and then listening. I think that would be like my big focus. I think sometimes I've seen some elevator pitches go on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like looking at my clock like, my goodness, we're on a marathon here. And I lose interest within the first 30 to 45 seconds.
Yeah, that's true. We teach students that. I know, and I've sat on panels for elevator pitches, and we tell them exactly, cut them off. If you're still talking, we cut them off, because we let them know it's very important to fit this time frame. We need you to tell us what you do within that particular time frame, and we work on it until they get comfortable and they actually know what it is that they need to say. So that's very important.
That's awesome. That's great advice. Well, Tasha, this has been awesome. I've really enjoyed having you for this workshop this evening. One last question: how can our audience learn more about you? How can they connect with you? How can they interact with you more? Do you have any books or podcasts or LinkedIn, or what are some ways that our audience can connect with you?
Yes, I do. My website is dickersonmanagement.com. I'm actually an author. I have books where you're looking for self-discovery. I have books on my website, on Amazon. I am on social media. You can look me up on Instagram at Dr. Tasha Dickerson. I'm on LinkedIn at Dr. Tasha Dickerson. So I am available. I'm usually on there giving some insightful wellness tips, some self-discovery tips, but I am anywhere on social media. Google me, I'm there.
That's awesome. Well, hey, Tasha, thank you so much for being here this evening. This was incredible. Students, thank you all for being here this evening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night, and I look forward to seeing you next month and learning how your next mentor conversation goes. Have a good night, everybody.